Welcome to Coffee with Democrats, a sensible platform for progressive conversations. Coffee with Democrats is a grassroots movement dedicated to hearing from Democrats, candidates, legislators, and friends from all political backgrounds who want great conversations. Coffee with Democrats is committed to increase Democrat voter registration and Democrat voter turnout by making voting more exciting and meaningful. And now here's your host of Coffee with Democrats, Kevin Dawson.
And good morning. Good morning. It is such a great morning. I'll tell you what, it's a great news day. We've got a great information yesterday. It's very sad that we're seeing President Trump, who has decided to withdraw from the campaign. But it's also exciting to see that as a Democratic core of voters, it seems like we're all progressing toward the fact that we're going to be supporting Kamala Harris as the next candidate. And I can't be more excited about that. Number one, I'm extremely excited about having a woman come on board. Yes. And number two, a woman of color. I'm just, I think this is a great day for America. I really do. But I don't want to take away from the fact that we've got a great candidate with us today, Ellen Pogemiller. I'm just so excited to have you on with us today. And thank you for joining us on Coffee with Democrats. It's so exciting to have you with us.
Well, I'm so excited to have this opportunity to talk about the campaign. Like you said, it is an incredibly big day. I mean, I told my kids yesterday, remember where you are, for this moment, because, we are not going to see anything like this again. And so it feels energetic. It feels new and exciting. And I hope it lifts all Democratic candidates across the country as we move into these last final months of the campaign.
I agree with you, and I couldn't agree more, because really, I think people are so sick and tired of the division from that old man that is the oldest presidential candidate who's ever been nominated in history, who has been a denier that he has failed in his first round. This is a great opportunity. And the fact that now we have a candidate that is so strong, I'm just excited about that. But I'm also just here in Oklahoma, we have got such a super majority in Oklahoma that having somebody with your skills and background, I mean, you bring a wealth of background to this, because you actually worked in Washington, D.C. at one point. So I interned. That was actually my first round of politics. I interned for my Congressman, Democratic Max Sandlin from Texas, and then worked on his campaign. And he was unfortunately redistricted into a district where he couldn't win. But, that sparked my interest in politics. Losing a race I thought I would never get back in. I was so heartbroken when he lost his race. But I think over time, I fundamentally believe that policy matters, good policy matters at our state. And I am not seeing, the things that I care about, or the community that I will hopefully serve care about those policies reflected at the state capitol. And so to me, this has just been an incredible opportunity to lift voices and try to make positive changes in our state. So before we get too far into this, we do have to ask all of the people who are watching this to please go out onto your social media and let everybody know that Ellen is on Coffee with Democrats, and we can be seen on multiple platforms. YouTube Live, we're @ Coffee with Democrats 7998. Again, that's YouTube Live @ Coffee with Democrats 7998. We're on Facebook Live. That's just Facebook, Coffee with Democrats. Click on our little icon. Let me point to it again. There it is, right there. Point on that icon that looks like that. It'll be glowing. Click on that, and you'll be able to watch us live. And then on Twitter Live, again, look for that same. There it is, right there. That same icon. @ Coffee with Dems. Elon Musk cheated us out of Democrats. All we could put in there was Dems. So that's what we went with, and we're proud of it. And we're just as proud to have you on with us to do. And today is, I'm Beyond Coffee.
You can tell by listening to me that I'm really excited and really geared up. So I can't have any more coffee this morning. But what kind of morning drink are you having today?
I'm an early riser, so I like to get up early. So I've already had my 2 cups of coffee that I try to restrict myself to, or I will also have too much energy for the day.
Yeah. So that's exciting to know as well. Let me pull this over here so everybody can see. This is my after I have my coffee for the day and some water. I've got a little scratchy throat going on. So in order to help that scratchy throat, I go to my syrup that's in Coke Zero, no sugar, and it does have a little caffeine kick, but not much. So that is my coffee substitute after I'm done with my coffee for the day. And I will just add this. People who watch this program on a regular basis, they know that my coffee addiction is basically McDonald's coffee with 5 creamers and 5 sweeteners, not sugar, but sweetener. And I've done that for decades because everywhere I went, whether it be Chicago or LA or Houston or the Twin Cities, no matter where I was at in the United States, I could drive through a McDonald's to get the same coffee that I loved everywhere. So what is your favorite coffee?
Well, if I'm making it home, I have a grinder. So I like to pick up some local coffee beans from different places. Sincerely Coffee has been my kind of my one that I've really loved over the last couple months. And then if I'm out, I always try to get a latte.
Okay.
But yeah, with a little bit of milk in my coffee, but that's no sugar or anything like that.
So I'm going to help you out, and I'm going to kind of talk a little bit about who you are. I'm going to save your voice for just a little bit because you're going to be talking a lot here in just a little bit. So Ellen was born and raised in a small town in Texas. She learned the importance of community at a very young age. The public schools where her mom served as on the school board were at the center of the community and made a lasting impact on Ellen. After graduating from the University of Missouri, a tiger, with a degree in education, Ellen worked for her congressman in Washington, D.C., and then at a homeless shelter in Dayton through the Americorp VISTA program, while her husband, Mark, was in residency through the United States Air Force. Ellen moved to Oklahoma in 2007 when Mark was assigned to Tinker Air Force Base through his service in the Air Force. Ellen and her family have now spent the last 15 years calling House District 88 their home. Ellen has spent her life working to improve the lives of people in her city and state. She worked for the Regional Food Bank of Oklahoma, establishing programs that increased access to foods for kids and developed a program focused on improving access to healthier foods. Ellen worked for the Oklahoma County Immunization Coalition, where she focused on increasing access and increasing vaccination rates for children and all people in Oklahoma. For the past 4 years, Ellen has fought for a great public school for every student by ensuring that our schools have professional educators and classroom resources. Ellen will stand up against extreme policies that strip our reproductive rights, attack our LGBTQ plus community, damage our public schools, and criminalize our immigrant neighbors. Ellen's greatest job is being a mom. She lives in Oklahoma City with her husband, who now works as a pediatrician. Her 2 boys attend Oklahoma City public schools, and she has served on the PTA and Parent Legislative Action Committee since she has been here. What a great resume, and what a great person you really are. I'm just proud as a peacock to know who you are. And really, it just shows I'm just beaming with excitement for you and for you to be able to talk to people about your candidacy. So talk to us just a little bit about kind of, I guess at this point, just give us what you think would be the very best reason why people should get to know you and should vote for you.
So one of the things I've knocked over 10,000 doors. So I've put in a lot of work talking with voters and constituents. And, the 2 things that I continue to go back to in those conversations is, first and foremost, there are many challenges that Oklahomans face in this state. And the way our state works is that we really pressure schools and nonprofits and our faith-based institutions to solve problems that really should be bolstered and supported by our state government. And we're leaving people behind. And our infrastructure that is supposed to help those who need help doesn't have enough to do the actual work in our state. And so I talk a lot to people about like my nonprofit work and why, solving hunger or affordable housing, all of those problems, we can't do that alone without some state policy and intervention. And obviously the biggest issue that I talk to voters about is public education. There is just a very big concern about Superintendent Ryan Walters and, ensuring that we are not isolating, members of our community within our schools, making sure kids feel safe, making sure that, we continue to separate church versus state in our public schools. And so those kind of conversations help me believe that like the background that I've had and the work that I have will help me to really be able to kind of address and be a strong advocate as soon as I get to the Capitol.
Absolutely. Those are great qualities and those are great policy proposals that you're issuing there. And I really have to reiterate, we've got a dramatic difference of opinion with our Republican colleagues. And one of the things that we really have to work on right now, and I see other Democrats within the legislature that are really doing, is reaching across the aisle to address the corruption that is taking place in the person that you talked about, Ryan Walters. It's gotten to the point where it is a pandemic of problems that he continues to bring up. He is an architect of chaos, and he's been very good at creating that kind of chaos. But the fact is, he is such a cancer to Oklahoma that children's lives are literally at stake with as long as this man stays in office. It's horrible what they're going through. I know of one person who has already lost their life as a result of bullying that has been taking place and felt estranged by the kind of rhetoric that he is putting out. And I put it fully on him. So I'm glad to see people like yourself who are willing to step up and challenge him directly and head on. And again, we're only going to be able to accomplish that by reaching across the aisle and working with our Republican colleagues, because there is no recall process in the state of Oklahoma. We have to either go through the impeachment process or we have to work with our Republican colleagues to start putting in more backups. Yeah. So I appreciate you for that. I really do. So we really need to talk a little bit more about, some of the things that you really find are really important. And of course, we're talking about education right now. We really need to focus a little bit more on that and what you think we can do about our current public teacher crisis in the state of Oklahoma, and some of the policies or laws that can be put in place that can actually help those people.
Yeah, I mean, I have the unique opportunity to work for Oklahoma Education Association, which is a statewide association that represents educators and support staff. And so, I mean, it gives me the unique experience to say, this is not a rural problem. This is not an urban problem. This is a statewide problem where we do not have enough qualified people going into the education field. Right. And we do not have many of our teachers who have been there for several years have left the institution of education. I remember talking to Senator Carrie Hicks, and one of the stats that she gives is that when she came into the legislature, teachers were leaving after 5 years, and now teachers are leaving after 3 years.
Right.
And that the way schools are set up is really to have a continuum so that you have veteran teachers who are working with new teachers. And when we lose that pipeline, it's not just losing teachers, it's losing an entire structure that has helped build better educators, which ultimately impacts our kids, because the most important person in that classroom and in that public school system are those educators. And so, we're going to have to continue to recruit and retain those teachers. We have started a policy at the state where we are helping to provide financial assistance to those who are choosing the traditional track of going, which is huge. Yeah. We're going to have to continue to expand that. I know it has made an impact in little data that we've seen, but it's not enough to, we need more. And I think we're also going to have to think creatively. One of the programs at Oklahoma City Public Schools that I'm so proud of is they have a pipeline program, which is helping support staff pay for college, but also work in the schools while they're getting their degree. So not only do they get the experience, they're also getting, an education. And so at the end of that 3 to 5 years, however long it takes them, they are required to stay in Oklahoma City Public Schools for the same amount of time of payback. And so it's like a win-win. So I think the more we can identify people who are interested in education, the more resources that we can provide for them. And then for those that are staying in our classrooms, we're going to have to listen to them about, hey, before you leave, what are some things that we can change? What kind of supports do you need? What can we take off your plate? I mean, that's what I hear from teachers all the time, is that the mandates continue to flood in year after year after year. And I think some of those mandates are taking away from quality time in the classroom, just with teachers being able to be creative and help students think creatively.
Well, those are again, great initiatives that I'm glad to see that you're taking on, and the affiliations that you have. Those are great affiliations, by the way. And they're affiliations that, again, Ryan Walters attacks those organizations and calls them terrorist organizations, which, again, the use of that type of language, that inflammatory language, defamation characterization, should land him in court, to be honest with you. But we'll have to wait and see what happens with that. The organizations are going to have to do that themselves. But the fact is, we have got to have a strong organization that supports our teachers, because right now our superintendent's not doing it. He does not support our teachers. He does not support our public school systems. And what is really going to hurt, it's going to hurt rural Oklahoma more so than it is urban Oklahoma. These very small communities, Marlow, Rush Springs. I mean, you can look at all over the state of Oklahoma, Stroud. The central largest employer in a lot of these communities is a school district. Mm-hmm. And when you hurt the school district, you hurt the community. And that's something that people really need to be aware of, is how toxic this individual is, and how once he starts closing these schools down, the towns are going to die with them. That's been the policy that we saw from Joy and from Gina, and I think we need to continue to spread that information. We've also got in Oklahoma, when it comes to outcomes for women, we've got a real crisis in Oklahoma. I think we're ranked 48th in the outcomes for women. We're in dead last place for women being incarcerated. I think that when it comes to mortality during childbirth, we're among one of the worst states. So talk to us a little bit about healthcare and the healthcare crisis in Oklahoma, and what your visions are for trying to help those.
Yeah, I just was reading last week. I think there was a new study that came out that said that states that eliminated abortion had actually the worst health outcomes for women. Right. And Oklahoma was within that top 4 of those. And so to me, that's devastating. I remember talking to a constituent on the door, and she was 27 years old, and she had 2 years prior to that had a non-viable birth, and she said it was the scariest process she ever went through. But she knew at the end of the day, she was getting the quality healthcare that she needs. I don't know what that looks like for someone like me today if I had to go through that,
Sure.
you know? And it is, I mean, those kind of stories to me are heartbreaking. You know, healthcare, whatever that looks like for women, you know, to keep them safe, to keep them healthy should be a priority, and we should not have government intervening and trying to decide what that looks like. I have grave concerns just overall birth control options that have always been readily available for women in our state, you know, that we may see a creep in on those options. And I'm, you know, gravely concerned about that. I also, you know, when we look at, you mentioned women in our prison system and the impact that that has on families. We do have, you know, a number of nonprofits that have started to emerge that have really targeted how do we address programs so that one, maybe they won't have to go to prison and they can go through, you know, kind of an outpatient support where they can continue to be a part of their family's life. I think that's critical if we talk about family values. You know, I think women are a critical part of those families. And so, you know, re-looking at how we address the criminal justice system to not disenfranchise really anyone in our community. But you know, these are statistics that we should not want to be in the top 10 in, you know, and they should be alarming. And again, it goes back to, yes, I'm thankful for state nonprofits that are trying to address it, but this should rise to the level, to me, that it should be a statewide policy that we are investing in, you know, so that we can become, you know, in the bottom of such a horrific statistic.
Statistic.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's horrible to see that. And I'm trying to remember the total number. Thousands, in the tens of thousands of women who are victims of rape, who now have to carry the child of their rapist, because in the state that they live in, they have no options for abortion. No abortive care whatsoever to terminate a rapist's a baby. And now we're going to see more issues like that. Oklahoma has a real issue because our stats are, because of our governor's policy, moving the stats out of public view. We don't even know the total number of women in the state of Oklahoma who have been raped and are carrying their rapist child. We don't know the number who have been victims of incest. Those are issues that everybody should be alarmed about and trying to work together to remedy. But again, our state leadership refuses to allow any of those stats to be released. Part of the reason why I think they moved one of the centers up to Stillwater and it's been a complete failure since they moved it away from Oklahoma City. But IVF is another issue we've got to talk about, because now we're not talking about terminating a pregnancy, but we're actually talking about the beginning of a new life and the beginning of a family. And now we've got, you know, some legislators who want to feel like it's necessary to eliminate IVF because the procedure and what it calls for with some you know, from some of the eggs that it may have to be disposed of.
Well, and you talk about, you know, the healthcare crisis. Part of that is a lack of physicians across the state. And so when we have policies that are going to put fear in a clinic's, you know, mind, that if they do IVF, which is just has become such a critical part of families, you know, being able to have children in this country. And when you put fear into a clinic, that not only could be illegal, but it could be something that they are going to be criminalized for. You know, you have fewer and fewer physicians that want to have that fear in practicing in this state. And so we really need to think about, if we're going to provide healthcare, we need to ensure that we are listening to healthcare providers and ensuring that we trust their medical judgment in so many critical cases.
Right. And one of the things that we are very fearful of is we've already got OBGYN deserts in Oklahoma, that those deserts are going to expand. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I think people in rural Oklahoma need to be very aware of, particularly when it comes to some of the interventions that are allowed to improve women's lives and also increase families and support families.
Mm-hmm. Well, and also, we provide, through our medical school programs and our residency programs, those, if people come and do residency in your community, they're more likely to stay. But if we cannot provide a full medical program for those residents, we are going to lose people choosing to stay in our state after medical school or coming to our state for residency programs too. And that is very concerning.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. We're going to move on to jobs, but we can move back to education and healthcare if you have other things that you want to talk about. But jobs and corporations in Oklahoma, we have really got an atmosphere in Oklahoma where people don't want to come here. Back in the 1990s, when I was living down in Chickasha, Oklahoma, there was a very supportive government in Oklahoma. That General Motors, we had a very large General Motors plant here on the east side of Oklahoma City that employed tens of thousands of people. We really had expanded Fort Sill, Tinker Air Force Base, Vance Air Force Base. We'd really expanded, during the 90s for Operation Desert Storm. And again, those brought in families. And again, that was in part because of the very open and supportive government that we had in place. And it was a Democratic government. Oklahoma was also a place where the federal government and the people throughout the world could rely on to send refugees that were needing to leave from other places. Fort Smith, Arkansas, which is right on the border with Oklahoma, was one of the places where there was a large number of people who came. And then those people migrated to Tulsa and Oklahoma City and throughout other places in Oklahoma whenever they got citizenship. So talk to me a little bit about what you believe will help Oklahoma gain more jobs, as well as address the problems that you see with our current Republicans.
So, I had a moment, this was right after we moved to Oklahoma, and it was not right after, but it was when all the tax problems were happening and we were having a budget shortfall. And right. I was attending a panel event, and the Oklahoma City Chamber of Commerce president was at that time was Roy Williams. And someone asked him, do corporations care about our tax structure? And he said, absolutely not. They care about what resources we provide for them when they move their company here. And that has always stuck with me. So if we do not have, high quality paying jobs for, you move one member of the family here, but that other member of the family wants to be employed too. So if we don't have high quality paying jobs, if we don't have enough affordable housing for individuals to have access to, if we don't have quality education, and we have child deserts, so that if you do move your family here and your kids are under the age of 4, where are they going to be for full-time childcare? And so I think, we don't talk about incentives as much to corporations. We talk about when they come, what resources we are going to ensure they have. And if they see us as a low educated, low resource state, and on top of that, someone who has policy and act that maybe disenfranchises our LGBTQ plus community and our immigrant community, many of whom they rely on for employees, or maybe their family members are represent those communities, we are going to continue to struggle to recruit and retain big corporations, even if we can provide an incentive that feels financially viable for that company, but they can't move a company without people.
Right. And that everybody says, Californians are moving to Oklahoma, but it appears to me that Oklahoma's population is shrinking. And that's, at any rate, it's not growing at the rate other states around us are compared to Texas, our neighbor. We're not even close to being comparable to what they're doing. And again, that has to do with our Republican legislators and what they're doing to, again, stifle growth. One of the things that I used to live in a small town up in Kansas, and the small town community, the city councilman that I spoke with on a regular basis, he said, if our town's not growing and our town is stagnant, we're dying. Mm-hmm. And that's the way it feels like in Oklahoma, because we had the opportunity for Panasonic to move here. And again, because of all the things that you just talked about, poor education, poor healthcare outcomes, we're not supporting, we don't have a support structure in place to support those corporations when they move here, as well as their families. Why are they going to come here? They're going to move to Kansas. And I just saw it's in the billions of dollars that Kansas, up in the Kansas City area, is just growing at a very high rate. It's going to become one of the fastest growing areas in the United States. And that has to do with they're building the support system up there around that Kansas City area, which again, it's predominantly Democratic in that area, even though rural Kansas is not. That area is very progressive. And it just makes me wonder, that places like House District 88 could be getting more here if it wasn't for some of the leadership that we have that just kind of turns the stomach of people that are wanting to come here. We've got Family Tree, I think, and Dollar Tree, or that are down in Marietta.
Oh, yeah.
That big facility that got hit by the tornado that could have been rebuilt. They're taking this as an opportunity to say, hey, we're out of Oklahoma. We're done. And that's so sad. We had the other places up by Tulsa that were hit by the tornadoes as well. Devastating. We had mass death casualty events up there. And again, the corporations are saying, sorry, Oklahoma, we're going to take our company and we're going to go somewhere else. And that's devastating in multiple ways, because it's so heart-wrenching to see the people die. But then when everything starts coming together, now they won't have a livelihood to go back to for the survivors.
Those communities with that it's going to be detrimental. I think Ardmore is also losing their tire factory.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But it's funny. A couple of years ago, they tried to pass a law to require it, and I'm not against this, but require every school to do an exit interview with teachers before they leave so that they could evaluate why teachers are leaving. And I feel like all the time, don't we need that same process? Like we have why are corporations leaving? But also when we have provided an financial incentive package that goes beyond, I think, our means, we do not follow up with an exit interview of what were the reasons that you did not choose here? And I think because we're afraid that the actual reasons would mean that our state's not providing the resources that company needs in order to bring communities, their community here. So,
man, it's so refreshing to talk to you, and I'm so glad we've had this opportunity to really get together. Before we move on, I need to backtrack a long, long ways. I really want to get to know who you are. We've talked about policy, and I think we went right for the gut punches from the very beginning instead of easing into it. Now I think we need to step back, and we just need to get to know Ellen a little bit more. You grew up in a small town in Texas. What small town was that?
Paris, Texas. It's the second largest parish in the world. So that's kind of our claim to fame.
And I used to run trains through Paris in my I didn't do it every day, but I have been through Paris. So I know where it is. I'm not, all I know it is from the railroad tracks going through there.
Oh, that's funny. Well, it's when I moved here and I told people I lived in Paris, was from Paris, Texas. And people are like, where's that? And I'm like, 20 minutes from Hugo. And then I realized nobody knew where Hugo was.
Hugo is, yeah. Yeah, northeast up by Texarkana.
Yes.
You're right. So when did you well, first of all, your mother worked for the school board and she was elected as a school board member is what I'm taking from that.
Yes. So my parents, for some reason, they were not from Paris, Texas. They decided to move there. My dad was from Austin. My mom was from Plainview. And so they moved to Paris, Texas and decided to call it home and, instantly got involved with the community. So from a very early age, I always saw, hey, if you want to make changes, you're going to have to get involved with something in your community to make that happen. And my mom was on the school board, I think, for 8 years in our town. And so, and it went through, superintendent changes, all of those things. But at the end of the day, there was always a focus on making sure that kids and every kid in our town had a quality education. So
perfect. So you went through high school, I take it, there in Paris?
Yep.
What was your mascot?
Oh, that's funny. I was actually the mascot for 2 years. I was Wilma the Wildcat. And then, because it's a small town, I decided to try out for cheerleader, which I had no skills whatsoever, but I had a lot of spirit. And so our cheerleading, no one tries out as a junior to be a cheerleader. Anyway, I tried out. And so I was a mascot for 2 years and a cheerleader for 2 years. Not that was your question, but when you said mascot, that's my little tidbit.
Well, and I graduated from El Dorado, Kansas, and our mascot was a wildcat. So I understand, and again, there is no such animal as a wildcat, but it's a term of endearment for the people who worked in the oil industry. Because they were wildcatters that moved around from place to place, following the oil during the first part of the late 1800s, early 1900s. After graduating from high school, you decided to go to the University of Missouri.
Yep.
Now, you can tell I'm not from Missouri because down in the Boot Hill of Missouri, it's Missouri.
Right.
Up in the Kansas City area, it's Missouri. In the middle, it's somewhere in between Missouri and Missouri. So, what was your reason for going to the university and there in Columbia, and tell us a little bit about what it was like.
So I decided I was a weirdo and decided at a young, in 9th grade, that I was going to go out of state and try something new. And so my geometry teacher suggested University of Missouri because there was a girl that she knew who really enjoyed there. And so I went and visited and was there for 4 years. And wherever you go to college, for me, it was like an opportunity to work through leadership opportunities. And I was a tour guide. That's how I met my husband. We were both tour guides at the University of Missouri together. Orientation leader, just super involved.
Right.
And I changed my registration to Missouri because at that point it was a swing state. And so my first big presidential election was Bush versus Gore. And my roommate and I stayed up till 2 a.m. and never saw. But now, it's gone the way of Oklahoma and it's very red, which is sad.
It is very sad. And we've got people up there in Missouri that we talk to on a regular basis, and we follow what's going on up there. And it's become such a solid red state. And traveling through Missouri to get to Illinois, where my son is at, it's very depressing to go along the southern Ozarks now. It just seems like it's another state in decline, just like Oklahoma is. But you go to places like St. Louis and Kansas City, and they're very progressive. So it's kind of interesting to see the dichotomy that's taking place, that people are choosing to have that environment, that they choose that situation that they're in. Let's move on just a little bit. You did go to Washington, D.C., and you worked for your congressman. You mentioned his name a little bit ago.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to us a little bit about that time period. What how long were you there, and about, what were some of the things that you remember from that time?
So I was there for 6 months, and really, I mean, when I say I was intern, I gave tours
Sure.
of the Capitol for constituents who came to visit, and I don't think they were really great tours, but they so
it had to been better than what they did on January 6th. There's no doubt.
Yes, no, absolutely. So
and again, for those people who feel like I took a bad shot at January 6th, I apologize. I should have never done that. I digress, but please go ahead, Ellen.
Yeah. So and really the main things that we got to do as intern is you could go and sit and listen to committees, which was kind of my first venture into this idea of how government really works, that you have this structure of committees, you have people that are really either through assignment or value belief or on these committees, and you hope that they really invest time in how do our government address education or health and human services or whatever those committees are. And so that was very impactful for me. And like I said, after 6 months, they asked if I would move to Lufkin, Texas, which is a small town in northeast Texas, and work for the campaign for 6 months. And so that's what I did. And, had one of most vivid, which was a candidate forum where one of our volunteers talked about, if you care about water issues, then you need to ensure that we have rural representation at our federal level. And that has stuck with me because water issues will continue to be a huge fight moving forward. So,
sure.
And then after that, moved to Ohio, where I worked with Americorp, which is kind of like the Peace Corps, but it's, but in the United States. So I worked for a homeless shelter there for a year. My husband was in residency in Dayton, Ohio. So we had gotten married, and then worked for the Jewish Federation actually for a year. And then we moved to Oklahoma after that. And I always joke, we moved in 2007, which is when Oklahoma turned 100. And it was a very big year to be in Oklahoma.
And it's also maybe the beginning of the decline that we're seeing in Oklahoma. So those were, again, very, very, very good times. Again, that was during the Great Recession. Oklahoma suffered, and it suffered greatly. And because of some of the leadership changes and the attitude of some of the people in Oklahoma, it hasn't gotten any better since. It seems like we're in perpetual 2007 sometimes. So,
well, and I think, one of the biggest frustrations I have overall is when we talk about why do we continue to not address these real problems? And I would imagine our voter turnout from 2007. I mean, there's just the amount of apathy I feel, going across the state has really increased. And so it's like, that's one of the hardest things for me to deal with is like, in order to change, we're going to have to still be mad, but we're going to have to vote. We're going to have to be a little less apathetic and believe that we can make change in this state.
And I'm seeing so many positive things coming with the possibility that that Kamala Harris is going to be the nominee for the Democrats. It's coalescing together that I'm seeing right now that she will be the nominee. And it's my hope that it'll continue to grow, because I think there's an excitement with that. And with that excitement, I think it's going to help people like you down ballot that are really trying to channel into that same excitement, making voting meaningful. Because again, you've got a challenger who's a Republican, who's basically hiding in the closet.
Mine's an independent, but he is hiding in the closet.
Okay. So it's unfortunate, but we've got to, people there have to make a decision on which direction they want to go in House District 88. And it's our true our honest wish and hope that they will follow you, because really you are the great candidate that will help Oklahoma improve. Well, I'm going to say, Ellen, thank you for coming on Coffee with Democrats. Is there anything else that you think we didn't discuss that you want to make sure we talk about before we take off?
I think I'm looking at my notes that I came up with, and I think we've covered most of them. I really am excited about this format. I think the more that we can elevate Democratic voices, the more that we can talk about the issues that we care about, I think the more that we can get people engaged in trying to rethink who we elect and why that matters. And so I'm very thankful just for the opportunity.
Well, again, thank you for coming on Coffee with Democrats. So before we take off here, I'm going to do something I'm going to try to share my screen. So bear with me. I've got some things I got to do here as we go through this, because I want to pull up your website. And my computer is giving me some help here. So bear with me. I'm going to share my screen. And I'm going to go to your website and pull it up here. I need people to understand Ellen cannot do this by herself. Her family, as great as they are, this is a daunting task, and she needs help. So one of the ways you can do that is go onto her website and click on volunteer. You can put your name in here. You can volunteer. And she's got specific things that she needs help with: door knocking, making phone calls, driving Ellen around, writing postcards. Those are specific things, and she's done this exactly the way that she needs to do it. Those are the top hitters. Knocking doors gets more votes than anything else that she can possibly do. The other thing that we really need some help with is we need to make sure that people can donate. We need to be able to donate to Ellen's campaign. And Ellen, help me out here a little bit.
You were almost there. If you go back to the top, it's in the right corner.
Donate, red, right there in front of me. Donate. The easiest one. And again, I want to make sure people understand you do not have to start at $25. I'm going to show you just as easy as it is. Just go to her website. If all you can give is $2, and that's all you have is time for just a cup of coffee, and say, all right, I'm not going to have a cup of coffee today. I'm going to give that $2 to Ellen so that she can do that. Just if you want to do it one time, click on no, donate once. And then all you have to do is put in your card information. It's that simple. And, but if you're like me, I'm going to donate $2 every month. And I'm going to click on yes, count me in, and then I'm going to put in my information. But if you have the ability to give more than $2, there's pre-checks here for $25. I don't know why you chose 88. There must be a special reason for 88.
That's the district.
Why not? It completely spaced me off. It went right over my head, so I apologize for that. But anyhow, that if you have the ability to do that, please help out Ellen. She can't do this by herself, so we really need for people to come in here and help her. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And Ellen, you have been a great guest, and we are completely supporting you 100%. Whatever we can do to help you, we want to do everything we can. So thanks for coming on Coffee with Democrats.
Thank you so much. And if, reach out anytime if listeners have questions, you've shown them my website, and we always respond very quickly. So thank you.
All right. Well, again, thank you for coming on Coffee with Democrats. It's been great to have you on here. And until the next time, folks, please be safe and support Ellen in everything that she's doing every way you can. So again, thank you very much and have a great day.
Bye.
This segment of Coffee with Democrats is brought to you by Steve Holcomb, Attorney at Law. With family ties to Oklahoma in the legal field that goes back as far as the early 1900s, Steve Holcomb is a well-known and respected attorney at law in Pawhuska, Oklahoma. You can trust Steve Holcomb, attorney at law, with your legal needs. For generations encompassing over 100 years, the Holcomb family name has practiced law and served the cattlemen of Oklahoma. From Marion Holcomb, Steve's great-grandfather, who became a judge among the lands of the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes in southwest Oklahoma in the early 1900s, who then moved to Pawhuska to practice law, to his grandfather, Thad Holcomb Sr., and his father, Lee Holcomb, who both served as presidents of the Osage County Cattlemen's Association. The Holcomb name has been and still is the trusted name for Oklahomans. As an enthusiastic supporter of Coffee with Democrats who promotes the Oklahoma standard of service, honor, and kindness, Steve Holcomb is the attorney we recommend going to when you have general practice legal needs. Call 918-287-8762. That's 918-287-8762 to schedule a consultation. Initial consultations may be provided free of charge, or go to holcomb.legal for more information.